everyone, welcome to week 6 of online learning for math. This week we're moving into a new subject, and our new subject is graphing, okay? We're going to focus on making and using graphs and tables to describe situations mathematically. We'll be learning how to plot points on a graph and show how different kinds of quantities change. For example, we'll start today by looking at some graphs of how temperature changes over time. What will be important throughout this unit is how to use mathematics, especially our tables and our graphs, to represent and describe real-world mathematical problems. So we're going to start off with this temperatures of two cities. Before we start off doing this, we need to talk about some vocabulary. Okay, so we're going to start with our, there's this cool pointer that I just figured out right here. Okay, we're going to start with our, let's talk about our x-axis. Okay, what is an axis? An axis is one of the lines that we'll be plotting on, right? Our x-axis is the bottom line. Okay, so the x-axis will be our bottom line right here. And in this graph, it's telling us about the dates, right? It's telling us the date. And then the next one that we have, the y-axis, is this vertical line, okay? And this one is telling us what the temperature is in these cities, okay? So now, when we think about x and y axis, I want us to think first that we're always going to crawl. We're going to crawl before we walk. Okay, so we always read the x first. Okay, so let's say if I go to March 18th, then I have to walk, I have to stand up to go to my y-axis, which is going to tell me a certain temperature. Okay, this graph that you see right here is a line graph, and as we can see, we have this line that is occurring. Okay. And this one is actually a double line graph because there's two different lines. One is representing Moscow, another one is representing Sydney, okay? And coordinate graph means that we have certain points that we can plot. So we see every single shape is a certain point that we can plot in our graph. Okay, so this graph is the temperatures in Moscow. We see right here we have Moscow, Russia, and Sydney, Australia. And we're comparing the different temperatures in Moscow and Sydney from September to August. So this right here is our title. And our title is what it is about. Okay, this data are for recent years, and they show the average temperature on each of the dates that you see along the bottom. So I want us to see what we notice with the pattern between Sydney and Moscow. And I want you to look at this graph really quickly and take a few moments and just focus on what you notice between Moscow and Russia. What are a few things that you see? Something that I notice is that both Moscow and Russia are different colors. Moscow is yellow and Sydney is, Moscow is yellow and Sydney is blue, right? So I see that there's a different shape also going on between those two. So what does it mean if I go to this point right here? Let's say I go to this point right here. What is this telling me? Okay, it's showing me that this was December 23rd, and that it was about 19 degrees Fahrenheit during that season. Okay, when I look over here, I'm comparing that same date, December 23rd, and it's about 71 degrees during that season. Okay, so this graph is of temperatures is a kind of coordinate graph, and it's called a line graph. What's important to understand about coordinate graphs is that any point represents two related values. One value shows along the bottom line, the horizontal axis. When we talked about this one, this is called the x-axis. And the other value shows along the vertical axis. And this one we called the y-axis. Okay. We'll talk more on these terms, but they are important that you know them. So I would really suggest that you either pause the video right now and you make yourself a graph and plot what those are, or go back a little bit and make sure that you copy this down, because this is really important information. It's like reading a map, right? We need to know how to read a map to be able to be successful. Well, we need to learn how to read this graph to be able to be successful. What's important for you to know is, what does each point mean? Okay, and that's what we're going to look at right now. Okay, so if you open up your book right now to page 273, you can see this exact same graph that we've been looking at, and it's the temperature in two cities. What do you notice as you look at the whole graph of Moscow from September to August? Okay, something that I notice is that from September, so I'm going to highlight right here, September, and then to August, which is the end, for Moscow, it kind of goes down, and then it comes back up. It starts coming back up really about March right here. And what is something that we notice happening from September to August with our Sydney graph? I see that it goes up a little bit and then it goes down a little bit, right? And the temperature changes in Sydney don't seem to be as different from the ones in Moscow. One way of getting information from this graph is by looking at each date and the temperature for that date. Another important way of getting information is to look at the shape of the graph, where it increases, where it decreases. So right here, I really have a really big increase from December all the way to July, right? That goes up a whole lot. And for Sydney, from here to here, it kind of goes down a whole lot, right? So those are big changes that I can see. So where it increases, where it decreases, where it stays the same, the temperature in Sydney is not changing very much from September to March, right? So if we look at September to March, it's really not changing very much. Our line stays pretty straight, right? But then we see from Sydney, from February to August, it's really dropping a whole lot more. So these are all changes that we can see and learn from when we look at a map, okay? And you'll have to be able to answer different questions based on what we see in these graphs and how we see them. So these are all very good patterns to be noticing right now. So this graph is similar to the one that we looked at before with Sydney, Australia, and Moscow, Russia. Only instead of showing average temperatures, it's showing the high temperature. So what do you notice about the temperatures for Honolulu? Okay, I noticed that the temperatures are kind of going down between September to December. It kind of goes down. And then it's kind of like increasing from December to February a little bit. And then it kind of evens out for a little bit and it just starts to go back up. Okay, so that's kind of what I'm noticing. Are they the same or the different temperatures from what we have in our town? Thinking about today, what kind of day it was. So today we were in May, so I think this is the closest one that we have, this May right here. And we were at about 100 degrees, maybe a little bit more. So we would be right above here, right? So is it hotter in Honolulu or in Tucson? It's definitely hotter in Tucson, right? Okay, if we were going to visit Honolulu, you might look up what the temperature is. Here are 2 descriptions of Honolulu's temperatures. Listen to them and see if you think these descriptions provide good information for someone traveling to Honolulu based on our table right here that has the data. Okay, so if I were going to say the best time to visit Honolulu is from September to November, when temperatures are mild, on average, the temperature are always high. On average, the warmest month is August. On average, the coolest month is January. So let's see that first statement. The best time to visit Honolulu is from September to November when temperatures are mild. So mild, like temperatures are comfortable, right? So we have to see from September to November, right? So this person in this description is saying that this is the best time to go when temperatures are mild. Would that be correct? Are the temperatures mild? On average, the temperatures are always high. Okay, so the temperature is high, so it's kind of hot on average. The warmest month is in August, so let's see, August is right here. Is that the warmest month? And the coolest month is in January. So let's see, January. Okay, so what statements that this person said are true? Okay, we think about the mild temperatures from September to November. I would actually say that the mild temperatures are right here in the middle. They kind of stay the same. They're at like 80 degrees, right? From here, we're actually seeing a really big decrease in the temperature, right? Then it says that August is the hottest. Is August the hottest? Okay, if we compare it to every other month, it's the tallest, right? Which means it's getting a higher temperature, so I would agree with that statement. And then it said that the coolest month is January. So January is right here. Is that the coolest month? Is there a month that's cooler? Yes, there's a month that's cooler, and that would be December. And we see that because we see that it's getting lower right there, right? January's temperature is a little bit higher than the December temperature. Okay, so that was the first description. Let's look at the second one. Okay, the second description says the temperatures in Honolulu are the temperatures in Honolulu vary little throughout the year. So they don't change very much. The average monthly high temperature ranges between 80 and 90 degrees. So the average, remember the average means that it's usually about 80 to 90 degrees Fahrenheit. And the average monthly low temperatures range from 65 to 75. So this is the high temperature usually, somewhere between those. And this is the low, usually somewhere between those. Now the other statement is saying that high temperatures greater than 90 degrees occur on an average of 38 days per year. So that's saying that for 38 days out of the year, we're going to see temperatures that are greater than 90 degrees. While low temperatures less than 60 degrees occur only once or twice a year. So it only gets below 60 degrees 1 or 2 times a year. The highest record temperature was 95 degrees in September 1988, and the lowest record temperature was 52 degrees Fahrenheit on February 16th, 1902, and January 20, 1969. So let's see some of these descriptions of what it is. Okay, it says that usually, on average, we have a high temperature of 80 to 90 degrees. So let's see that. On average, the high temperatures are 80 to 90. So it would be everything in this box right here. And that's the high temperatures. Okay, we see that once we go to 90 right here, this is actually a little bit above that, okay? So mainly all of them are between 90 and 80, okay? So that one's kind of true. And then it says that the low is between 65 to 75. So it would be about this area right here. Okay, we actually see that there's actually no plots, right? So that can't be correct. It says 38 days out of the year has 90 degree or higher temperatures. Well, I only see one day that has a temperature that's above 90. So that one wouldn't make sense either. And 1 to 2 days have a temperature that is lower than 60 degrees. So I go to 60 degrees. Are there any that are lower? There's nothing down here, so that one is also not correct. So now thinking of that, which description do you think is being more honest to our travelers wanting to go to Hawaii? And I would say that it was that first graph, right? That first description that they were telling us. They were being a little bit more honest with everything that they were saying. And this graph right here, this description didn't really fit the description correctly, right? I don't think that they were accurate in representing the high temperatures in Honolulu. Okay, so now we're going to learn how to plot points. So many times you will be given a chart like this, okay, where we have right here the different cities in the United States that had recorded their temperatures, okay, and these are all measured in Fahrenheit. And then you will get a graph like this and you would have to plot it, okay. So how do we do this? How can we plot our points? All right, so the first thing that you have to think about is what city are we going to plot, okay? I actually think we should plot Alaska. Ever since that lady came to talk to us at school, I've been super interested in Alaska. So I'm going to kind of just box this for us so that we know that's what we're looking at, right? So I know that the x-axis here is this line right here, this horizontal line, and it's telling me the date. So I can use the date over here, and all of this right here, all of these line up with our x-axis, right? And then I have our temperature right here, which lines up with these numbers that were recorded. So for September 9th, where would I put my point? Okay, well, I have to look at the date, September 9th, so I'm going to have to follow this line right here. And I will plot that point where it has 59, okay? Well, if you look really closely, Okay, if I were to zoom in right here very quickly, well, this is only from 50 to 60. How do I know where I would plot? Okay, think about 59. 59 is really close to, it's really close to 60, right? So I'm going to try to get it closest to 60. And I would plot that right there. Then I would go to my next one, which is September 30th. September 30th, the temperature was 51 degrees. So now I plot on 51, which is a little bit lower than 59, right? Then I have October 21st, and that is 42. Okay, so then I plug 42. What do I notice between these three? If I were to connect these with my line, what am I noticing? I'm noticing that the temperature is going down, right? Okay, November 11th is 43, so then I'll plug 43, and that means it goes up a little bit. Okay, so I just plotted a few points, and we're going to follow those with our pen and connect those. Okay, and seeing those points, I would be able to answer right now from, oh, I skipped one. It's important that you don't skip those because that gives you a different pattern, right? And when you see that, that can kind of change what your answer is going to be. So right here, if I were to look at just this part of the graph, and someone asked me, what is the coldest temperature in Alaska? Well, just based off the points that I plotted, I could go and I can see, okay, the lowest I know would be over here somewhere. And February 24th falls under, right? It's the lowest point. What is the highest temperature? Okay, someone who does not like to be out in the cold. If you wanted to tell them when is the best time to go to Alaska, would you tell them February 4th or would you tell them September 9th? Well, if the temperature is 17 degrees February 4th and it's 59 September 9th, well, I would much rather be in a temperature with 59 degrees than it being 17 degrees, right? So this is how we plot our points, and this is how we can answer those questions. So for the next couple of homeworks, you'll be able to read your graph. Don't forget what the x-axis is, y-axis, what the titles tell us, and make sure that you are going back over this video or over your notes if you need more help.